Our organization rebranded in January of 2022, and although we are 173 years young, not us, but the organization, we really believe that our WellPoint Care Network describes our vision, our passion for how we can serve the community. We feel it's a better representation of our hopes and dreams for the work, and certainly a way to ground our employees in the work that they do in the community each and every day. On any given day, we are serving 5,000 people, mostly families, so parents, children, youth and young adults, and through our mental health programming, we also serve adults, including some elders. The services that we offer have evolved over those 17 decades of service to the community, and it is ever changing, as it should be, to meet the needs of the community in fresh and new ways. Currently, we are 320 employees, maybe 321, hopefully not 319 today, but an organization committed to serving not just Milwaukee, although that's our primary service region. We are in 39 counties throughout Wisconsin and do a small amount of training and consultation around the country. So that just gives you a little bit of a sense of who we are and what we'd like to share today. Our mission is to facilitate. It doesn't say we do services. We do things to people. It is our firm belief that the facilitation of a process that creates healing and learning, grounded in equity and wellness, is how we see the world and how we hope to come alongside the people in our care to facilitate their journey towards healing, towards thriving. In 2023, there are three main service lines that we offer within the community. Mental health, as I mentioned earlier, we have an outpatient mental health clinic at our Capitol Drive location on the northwest side of Milwaukee. We served students in 40 schools throughout southeastern Wisconsin, where our therapists are in the schools meeting the mental health needs of students who have either identified themselves or by whom teachers or parents have said that they might benefit from the support of mental health care. Child and family well-being, that's why we're here today. Child welfare, the commitment to ensuring that children are safe, that they have permanent and forever families, hopefully within their family of origin, and that they achieve well-being and wellness. This is the largest part of our organization, and the representatives out in front of us today will tell you a little bit about how they serve within that child and family well-being role. Training and consultation is something that we offer for trauma-informed care. Our model of care, the 7 essential ingredients of trauma-informed care, teaches us what the science tells us about the importance of understanding adversity, especially ACEs or childhood adversity, how we recognize what that potential trauma exposure is, how we create meaningful relationships that generate the possibility of healing, and how we reach systems of care, not just child welfare, but other systems that support children and families. So schools, law enforcement, judges and legislators, healthcare. These are all systems where we've had the opportunity to train. To date, we've trained 75,000 people. Our belief is that any system or any professional that touches the life of a child can benefit from reshaping their perspective on the impact of trauma. And so we continue to offer that throughout our community and, as I mentioned, throughout the country as well. That was last year, 2022. This is not a brag, but it's a desire to share with you our commitment in serving the community and also our commitment to being engaged and involved in community connection, network, partnership. That second number of 2,500 people met is our strong belief that the families and the children within our care benefit by having a vibrant and connected community. And so our interest is working with other organizations and individuals who share that same passion for families and children as well. They're really loud. I'm thinking that's Kwaku. Our approach to caring for the people. Oh, I didn't think you'd open.
Well, points in the house.
All right, game on. Oh boy, I got to really up my game with him next door. Our approach is grounded in these three practices. Trauma-informed care, which I just talked with you about. Well, he's got me lamped up. That's good for you all. This is after lunch. The 5 pillars of stability, we will talk about that as we share the role that our staff play in supporting the people in our care. Diversity, equity, inclusion is woven into our understanding, our humility, our appreciation for understanding the journey of the people that we come to meet in our work, and our responsibility to appreciate the historic and generational trauma and systemic racism that is woven into the work that we are a part of. How we own that, how we work through that, how we support that is really important to us. So the elephants in the room. I don't know why you chose to come to this. Maybe you were like, what elephant? That sounds kind of weird. But really, when you think about it, all throughout our time together today, there has been this appreciation for the discussion that all of the fantastic presenters have shared about the elephant being the fact that the system of care that we talk about, that we tweak, that we strive to fix and make better, the system itself is deeply challenged over many decades of time. And far better than I could share, we learned a lot this morning about those points in history over hundreds of years that created the process that brings us to today. So acknowledging the elephant of that truth is really what we hope to talk a little bit about with you today. You cannot talk about trauma without talking about historical and generational trauma. We learned that with great humility early on in our trauma-informed training, where we presented our curriculum very enthusiastically. At the morning break, a woman came up to our trainer and said, "I really like your stuff. It makes a lot of sense, but you are missing a very important piece of the truth of this discussion," which was a very humble acknowledgement of the impact of historical and generational trauma. And boy, did that, this is a dozen years ago now, boy, did that open up the conversation to have deeper and more meaningful acknowledgement of what we were actually talking about. So that's a big elephant, and one that we hold dear to be true to, transparent about, open about when things are messy, as they can be, but that's a big elephant in the room. As I mentioned at the start of our time together, another elephant is that no matter what the circumstances that are part of a family's story, that family separation is traumatic. The notion that kids are safer or better or whatever the platitudes are, there are elements of that that may be grounded in truth, but there are also elements, as we've heard so passionately today, that are about a story that's different. That separation, attachment, loss of that primary caregiving is disruptive in the moment when it happens, and as we know from the science, the neurobiology, disruptive for years to come into the future, and epigenetics, years and generations to come into the future. Another important elephant. It is also true that to be on the journey to reimagination, I guess that's what we all signed up for after lunch, to be Trojan horses, we have to be able to discuss the importance of a diverse and culturally responsive workforce that is needed in order to engage the community, not just the people who are in our care, informal systems of care, but also the community at large, where there are caring and compassionate people who strive to make a difference for their neighbors and other citizens, and bringing that context into the child welfare system is a vital piece of reimagining what the future might look like. For us, social determinants of health, which are, for us, our 5 pillars of stability, are an absolute game changer for shifting the perspective of how we come alongside somebody to meet them and understand their life story. If you are homeless, if you are hungry, if you are looking for work, if you are dealing with physical or mental health challenges, or if you lack caring connections in your life, those are our 5 pillars, 5 is 5 fingers, it will be hard for us to engage you because those are real, very tangible and painful truths that we need to acknowledge, support, and provide the resources for you in order to address them as a part of our responsibility to that facilitate word, which is woven into our mission. I wish I hadn't typed this next one because now, very fresh eyes through the discussion this morning and that vivid image that we saw on the slide about prevention being surveillance, that gave me pause. I understand it differently and better, and I've been at this a long time, 30 plus years, but I would state this one differently based on the learning that I had this morning. What I think we mean by it is to be able to offer resources to families when they first need help, when they're young parents and engaging their little ones and engaging the community in ways that create success. We definitely don't mean prevention because we're keeping our eye on you. So we'll change this for next time we're together. Hopefully that time won't be next to Judge Mosley. And this final one is my deep passion. Those of you that are in the room that know me, I hope, understand that. So we talked a lot this morning about what's wrong with the system of child welfare, and those facts and the data and the research are compelling and powerful and, true. But there's also this both and piece of the reality that the people doing the work, the people stepping forward, all of you, all of these wonderful WellPoint employees, the people that step forward and step up need to experience compassion and support to be the most successful that they can be in their quest to help other people. Dr. DeGroote said the spiritual oneness. I love that. It speaks to the fact that there can be struggles in the system of child welfare that we are a part of, but there can be a coming together, compassionate and supportive, that creates positive change. And that's absolutely exclamation point in this post-pandemic polarized time. Everything is either exhausted or more exhausted, good or bad, right or wrong, black or white. That polarization and that pandemic fatigue impacts our ability to be effective facilitators of healing and change. So that is a newer but a really big elephant in the room today. I touched on this before. It cannot be understated. Within the context of child welfare system, historical and generational trauma, generation, all the way back hundreds of years, is a part of the truth of our need to reimagine doing this differently. We need standards. We need to follow child safety concerns. We need to pursue things that are true and right, but we need to push ourselves to really own how our history of our country, of our world, and in Milwaukee, of the systems that we don't like to be famous for, disproportionality in education and employment, segregation and housing, socioeconomic differences that are not seen in other communities across the country. These are legacies of historical and generational trauma, and we need to hold that. We need to own it. We need to move through it as we strive to do that facilitating that we all are aspiring to do. This is really small print, and if I'm honest, I will admit that during lunch I snuck over to try to make it bigger, but this is as big as I could get it and keep it on the slide, so don't mark me down for quality of PowerPoint slides. Our marketing director's in the back probably cringing, but you know, the words, the meaning, what this slide is about is what matters most, and it's really serious stuff. So we talked about family separation, which sometimes is the byproduct of a child welfare investigation, that separation, whatever the circumstances, is traumatic. We know that separation elicits strong emotion in the parents, in the children, and grief that doesn't just go away the next day, or even when a child is returned to the care of their parent. Because of the significant traumatic impact of family separation, the strong desire to only pursue that as last measure needs to be woven into this elephant. We believe, based on our commitment to trauma-informed care, that healing can only occur in relationships. Systems don't heal people. Programs don't heal people. Services don't fix people. It is the relationships within those programs and services that create the potential for positive change. And we know that it takes time. We also know within Milwaukee's child welfare system, within some of the work that we do, that there are some inklings of positive change. What was shared this morning from the presenters, those are obviously research-driven truths. There are some things that are happening in Milwaukee that we'd like to talk a little bit about that create the response from the call to action that we heard loud and clear this morning. One of those loud and clear responses is the commitment to place children within their family systems whenever possible. So that in Milwaukee County currently, so this is 2023 data, very contemporary, almost half of the time that a child is removed from care, it is a relative, someone whom they know, sometimes grandma or grandpa, auntie, uncle, cousin, that child is placed with, which is still family separation. I'm not saying, okay, so we're good, but it is a significant step forward on that concept of relational healing and safety. And so that number, again, I joked I've been around a long time, is probably 4 times what it was not that many years ago, with people really understanding what that means from a sense of family stability and safety. There is also a sustained focus in Milwaukee County to continue to create change, to address family challenges not by child removal and family separation, but by providing community resources for families and understanding their life story enough to connect them with community organizations and other resources that strengthen them in order for them to remain an intact family. I wish I had the actual number for this next bullet point, but I will share with you it is my a little bit fuzzy memory. So again, context matters. Within our county child welfare system, it was probably 30 years ago that there were close to 10,000 children who were within the system of care. Currently, 1,900 children. In 2002, when the federal lawsuit that governed us was settled, that number was 5,600. So from 2002 until today, that's an almost 68% decrease in the number of children in care. One is still one too many, so again, don't misconstrue my statistics here. But I think as a community, we do need to own that that is a significant change over about a generation's time. And the commitment, as I mentioned before, to have that number become even smaller because we're better meeting the needs of families, we're able to keep them together. That is the commitment that, for us, fires us up in this work and commits us to do better for tomorrow and for the family we meet next week, and to celebrate when kids go back with their parents, and to honor how important family kinship providers are in that journey as well. But from close to 10,000 to 1,900, that's a big shift. One of the elephants was how important it is to have a diverse and competent workforce, and that is true for any organization, any business, nonprofit or for-profit, any governmental entity. This is a given woven into the truth of our society. Sometimes people do better at this than others. This is something that we have monitored, tracked, honored, worked on for over 10 years, because we recognize in the work of human services how important it is that our workforce mirrors the population of people in our care. One of the things that has been a mantra for us in this quest to a diverse and competent workforce is the notion that a family might say, when they came to my door to help me, they didn't look like me. And how 10 years ago, when we deeply understood that truth, we set out on a course to make that better. Then at that time we were Saint A, but now as WellPoint. The commitment to ensure our workforce mirrors the population in our care remains a constant. So this is, again, a little bit small for your viewing, but the important thing is to see the commitment to diversification of our workforce. This is child welfare case managers. And when we began this tracking, 60+% of our case managers were Caucasian and 20-some% were African American. That has almost flipped in that 10 years' time. And we embrace a diverse workforce of all employees, but this ability to have a closer representation of the community has been a really important commitment for us. Similarly with supervisors in our organization, organization-wide increased diversification of our workforce, and also on our executive team and our board of directors. These are numbers for our executive team and our board of directors that are for transparency's sake. I'm not saying aren't these great. We can do better. We are constantly working to do better, but change begins with understanding the data. And we knew in both these examples that the data told us we needed to do better. Everybody good? Everybody still awake? He's quieted down a little. The next elephant that was represented on that slide was an appreciation of 5 pillars of stability, and I touched on this a few minutes ago. Each time we meet someone who's coming into our care, whether that's a child welfare family or someone coming to our mental health clinic for therapy, or one of the students that I mentioned we serve in the schools in the region, we conduct with them, come alongside them, and learn about their life to understand if they have any concerns. Now it's from that side. In these areas of stability. Social determinants of health. Again, in recent years, we've learned how essential it is to understand a worldview through this perspective rather than symptomology and deficits. understanding where there is need for supports, where there might be gaps that we could help close by asking the question, tell us about your life. Enforcing that engagement as our first opportunity to get to know somebody. The compliance, the rules, the court order, that will come as a responsibility of the work, but starting here starts the conversation in a much different place. And we're able to help somebody find an apartment or a home, or support them in their job search, or maybe pursue an educational path by helping them apply for school or scholarship. Those things are, as was discussed this morning, fundamental to somebody's well-being. And this all going better or well diminishes the need for child welfare because families are supported and strong. I want to highlight a little bit of the way that we embrace diversity within our organization. So what you see up on the screen are some of the examples of our committees and work groups. These are all vibrant and employee-led diversity, equity, and inclusion groups that are under the umbrella of a DEI leadership council that is also employee-led. And again, embracing the diverse and competent workforce means people finding a space where they belong within our organization. People valuing connections and commitment to people who share their same values or interests or attributes or orientation. That's a big piece of creating a workforce that is both vibrant but also very competent in their work. I have just a couple more slides, then the real talent starts talking. I wanted to share this equity and inclusion statement, which was created within our organization in 2017, revised in 2022, and this is something that was presented and adopted or ratified, I guess, by our board of directors. These are things, activities, actions that we stand behind. So DEI isn't just a diverse workforce. There's much more responsibility and accountability to that. And these 5 ingredients, if you will, help us walk the talk, including an enhanced vendor and supplier diversity commitment, the number of community organizations with whom we contract, the number of dollars that we bring to those minority-led, women-led, veteran-led organizations. That's number 4. That has grown exponentially because we started tracking it and caring about it and making it come to life. And in each of these examples, there's active efforts in order to fulfill the statement and its commitments. In 2020, in May and June, our organization, like perhaps many of yours, went through turbulent times, trying to understand the impact of the murder of George Floyd and what it meant to us in our commitment to the community, to our workforce, what it meant in terms of what our responsibility was to bring voice to some of the truth of what happened. And so an employee group worked within our DEI leadership to draft this pledge, which we recited for the first time as an organization at our Healing Starts With Us rally, which was on June 26th of 2020, an absolutely awesome and very meaningful day. We had planned, so midst of pandemic, right? So we were going to have an outdoor rally because we couldn't be inside together, and we had a field set up and we were good to go, and we had the pledge and people were so excited, and there was a severe thunderstorm warning just at the time people were supposed to be getting in their car to go. So we canceled it and we converted it to virtual, which was horrible and also awesome, because we had 238 people on the Teams call, And all of them stood up and gave voice to this pledge. And it was absolute chaos. You couldn't hear the words. It was loud. It was crazy. But you felt something. I felt something that day that I knew was so real. And it was very emotional. Still is a little bit. And then when we were able to get together in person again and take our masks down and say it like normal, it was even more powerful. So I don't at all mean to make light of this pledge. It really represents our aspirations to be true to an anti-racist commitment, to seek to understand when we're part of systemic racism and to do something about that by our words, by our actions, by our commitment, most importantly, by how we come alongside the people whom we serve. So for us, the pledge has been a very important part of this journey. I already fessed up about this one, so we're going to just move along. I will revise that to be more culturally respectful next time we talk about this. Then finally, before our panel comes to light, Compassion Curve is a construct we developed at the very beginning of the pandemic to recognize what on earth are we going to do about this truth that we're in. We cannot conduct the work that we do as we know it. Our jobs are to engage people in their homes, in schools, in community settings, and we weren't allowed to, just like all of you. We had to stand up our organization to be a virtual one, literally overnight. And so the Compassion Curve was an acknowledgement that we had to stay true to our commitment to trauma-informed practice. Those things didn't change just because the way we went about caring for people was changing. And so that commitment to compassion and honoring the truth of the human experience was true for our families, was true for our workforce, and eventually when we were able to get back at it, has been true for the broader community. Compassion Curve is something we developed and learned along the way of the pandemic that stays with us today. It makes sense that as human serving people, citizens, neighbors, family, if we proceed with compassion in whatever we do, we will flatten that curve of disruption and dysregulation because we're bringing the compassion that creates the change. So, again, something that came of a bad situation that has helped make us stronger. So that gives you context for the stories of these talented professionals that you'll hear about. You'll understand how their roles fit in based on what you learned a little bit about our organization. And how it works is we're just going to have a conversation, but each of them is completely prepared and very talented in their role. So I'm sure that you will enjoy their time. So we've asked Tracy Bennett to start us off, and each of them will introduce themselves and tell you how their work and their role fit into the things that I shared about our organization. Tracy.
Hi, everyone. Is my mic working?
I don't know. Here.
Hello?
You can take my sweaty one.
Okay. Hi. There we go. It's nice to see faces that I haven't seen in a while, but I used to work with. Also makes me a little nervous. So, my name is Tracy, and I have served in just about every department here at WellPoint. So I've done a case management role. I've worked in treatment foster care. I've done some clinical consulting, and now I'm in a role called we kind of switched it. So it says TFC kinship specialist up there, but recently it's been changed to kinship wellness specialist. And what I do in this role is like Anne had mentioned, the move to really emphasize placing children with their relatives. We saw that there was a need for these families who are taking in their grandchildren or nieces or nephews, and they're doing so graciously, and they already are pretty taxed themselves and have a lot going on with their own families and lives. And so we saw that sometimes they were taking in their relatives that had really high level of need. So those of you who are familiar with that CANS score, that CANS of 3 or higher, relative caregivers, I will meet with them if they have a child who has that higher level of need, and then I work with the family and the child in a therapeutic role, and also I kind of meld the therapeutic role with helping the family meet some of those 5 pillars of stability. So I think that's one thing that was really highlighted this morning, is that so many of our families, and not only families, biological families who are in the system, but also the relative caregivers have challenges that they are facing as well. And so, I help them kind of get connected to resources that helps me then come alongside in that therapeutic role. So we know that, mental health and well-being doesn't happen in isolation, so you have to have those basic needs met first. And so this is a very nice way that I can combine those roles and help families. And so it's been a really fun adventure. It's a newer role, and I'm excited to see how this grows in WellPoint. And then Anne highlighted so many things about how my role kind of addresses the elephants in the room, but I think the first and foremost thing that I just want to acknowledge is that I recognize that I am a white woman in a role where I'm serving primarily families of color. As we know, Milwaukee, 63% of our families that we serve are people of color, and so I think WellPoint has really taught me, just the importance of, perspective shift and how that comes first within. And I am not going to be effective at all if I first don't take a look inside myself and acknowledge, the deep challenge of the child welfare system. And it's what we've learned today, or already knew, the systemic racism that has kind of been there since the infancy of child welfare. So I wrestle and struggle kind of with this tension every single day of just my role as a white person working in, this still challenged system that is racist in nature. And so, I think that's just something that, like Anne mentioned, it's a both and. I'm not on the other side, but I'm certainly not wanting to propel or perpetuate, what was started so long ago, all the harm and suffering that was created. So wrestling with that in hopes that we continue on this journey of change and reimagining. I can talk longer, but I don't know how much time we've got. Should we move on to the
Maybe so.
delegates?
We can come back to some conversation.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. So I'm Alex Williams, Director of Community Engagement. So when I think about how we utilize our capacity and our resources to help families, I think about a few points. So we talked about the 5 pillars. A big part of that is connecting families and the young people to the resources within those 5 pillars. So the quickest example I can think of that is last year we did a back to school event. Essentially we gave backpacks and school supplies to kids in need. But we also had partners there that hosted resource tables. And one of my favorite stories from that event is a woman who was looking for childcare. She couldn't find it. She came to our event and brought her young children, and she was able to sign up for a daycare right there on the spot. So being able to leverage who we are in the community and what we do to better help the families and the clients that we serve. Right. So we don't have a childcare in our building yet. But we are able to refer her to a partner that we trust and that we know does good work within the community. So creating those connections, creating partnerships, creating community cohorts, and things of that nature to one, unveil where are the resources. I think doing this work, one thing I've learned is that equal to the lack of access to resources is the lack of awareness of those resources and who's out there and where they are, how accessible they are to families. And so making people aware of those things, I think, is the first step. And then peeling back or opening the doors or removing the barriers or breaking down the silos so that they can access those resources is the second step. So I think about those things. Another way that we are helping is to try to create platforms for young people to amplify their voices, right? We're not giving anybody a voice because they already have it, but to be able to amplify those voices and give them a platform where they're heard. So like I think about our youth advisory council and how they're able to advocate for young people within the system, to be able to give them a greater platform to talk about their stories and talk about what they would have needed growing up, and then to try to seek those things out for future generations. Understanding what the community needs through targeted and specific outreach and activity. So we've just recently put on our registration forms for our events, what is your greatest need in your community? And then by gathering that data, we're able to, one, I intentionally wanted to do it that way because I feel like communities are oversurveyed and underserved, right? And so we don't want to go door to door asking people a bunch of questions, being invasive, taking up a bunch of their time, but we have like these 5 pillars. What out of these 5 pillars, if it's everything, circle everything, right? But if you have a specific need, then we're able to go back and send you specific resources for those things. So the quickest example I can think of that is Sherman Phoenix did a community baby shower. And there were people there who said, I'm going to be evicted in 2 days. I don't know who to call. Through our relationships and our connections and our connections to like housing resources, I'm able to tell them, call this number, you can get this resource. Go to this organization, you can get this resource, right? And I think the ease of that sometimes is shocking to people because Milwaukee is so siloed and we kind of hoard resources sometimes, and people want their names on the head of the ground. I don't have to tell you all these things already, all these things. But I think that part of it is extremely important too. And then the last thing I'll touch on is just the importance of partnerships and relationships, whether it's partner organizations, community leaders, anything like that, because being able to expand our continuum of care through those 5 pillars and through our services is how we liberate children from the child welfare system. So another thing, and I'll end with this. I always say I love my job, Ann. I work at WellPoint. I work for liberation. And I think we have to understand the difference between roles and places, especially in our community, right? We have roles, right? We have job titles. We have, a job description of what we are tasked to do, what we're paid to do, what we're supposed to do, right? But that's not a place. That's not a fixed position in which you cannot move from. I would encourage people to look at what their role says they're supposed to do and combine that with your passion for what you want to do, right? And if that's within the realm of your role, do that, right? And if it's not within your role, find a new role. Because I think sometimes people are too timid, right, to shake up the system. We say we want to disrupt the system, and we get in there and we look around and we're like, I don't know if I can make change. I'm only one person, right? And so I think we have to build that confidence in each other. We have to understand that if something is right for us, or if something is not right for us or for our people or for the community, then it has to change. It has to be uprooted, it has to be burned to the ground and built back up in a different light, and that's just what it has to be. Because community members, I'm talking a lot now, community members, this is not, it's not a 9 to 5 for them, right? It's their life. The work that we do affects people's real lives every day, every second of every day. And so we have to be conscious of that. And if we're not working towards liberation, if we're just working at a place, we're not really moving the needle. We're not addressing the elephants. We're not breaking down those barriers. So that's what I do.
You sure you don't got more to say? I'm Alice Hibbler. First, I'd like to say hi to my prior supervisor from Will Point. He's here to support me. I've been with the agency for 9 years. I started off as an ongoing case manager. I work directly with families, providing support, monitoring safety of the children, and also working closely with the parents to provide those resources that we offer, others offer, providing assistance so they can be reunified with their children. I enjoyed that role because me being African American, I was able to relate to the families that I worked with. And with that, I was able to build those strong relationships. As we know, people of color do not trust the system. But because I was able to normalize things, work with them, and pull those strengths that others may be scared to pull or just have direct conversations with them, I was able to get some of those changes and for them to start trusting not the system, but trust their self to work toward their goal of getting their children back or just actually making other permanency decisions for the best of their children. I know that is a hard thing to do, but I was able to do that. Now I sit in a role as a supervisor, and now I just work with my staff to do those same things. We have a very diverse agency, and I really work on perspective shifts, because if you don't have perspective shifts to try to see something in a different light, meet that family, meet that child, or meet that infant where they are, we won't make the change, and it will be stuck where we are. That's pretty much all I have, Miss Ann. Okay.
Okay, let's do this. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Johnisha Nita. I'm a parent partner for Will Point. I work from a team called Community Outreach, and our team initiates the 5 pillars and calls families and go through all like the housing, education, caring connections, health, and they go through that through an assessment. And then I don't do it, but they do it. So it's a difference. I'm going to talk about my role, which is a parent partner. And we are a program. WellPoint went with the program of Parents Supporting Parents. And that is an evidence-based program that shows that a person with lived experience is impactful for a parent that is going through the system, and can show them which way to go, navigate, give direction, and support. Just be there 100%. So who am I? I want everybody to know who I am, because the elephant is now in the room. So let's do it. I am a mother. I am also a child of the system. I was just listening to Miss Ann, and my kids are currently with my old therapist, which is from St. Amelia's. It's just like the effect of the system didn't affect me the way I see it, but it's true, it's real. Everything that's going on in the system is real. I am a product of the system. My kids became a product of the system. Fortunately, I was able to get reunified with my kids because I put in the hard work, and I had a new case manager, and she came in and she was like, you know what, I got this. I know what to do with you. And then she got me in an FDTC, and then next thing you know, I graduated from FDTC. Next thing you know, I was in Healthy Infant Court. I graduated from Healthy Infant Court, the first graduate. Next thing you know, I'm doing presentations with the judge. So now I'm here, and I like to believe this to be my calling. This is something that was called for me to do. I did not go out looking for this job. This job is new to WellPoint, and I was called to do this job. And when I do it with the utmost passionate I want results because I know that my parents can do it. I know that it can be done. I know my position is to advocate for my parents. So I'm able to build connections, relationships with attorneys, case managers, everybody, so we could help this family become successful and meet all their needs. And I think that's all I got. Okay.
And that's a lot. That's a lot. Thank you to each of you. So this isn't, as you saw with our little print slides and some of our other little blips, this is not a scripted story today. We met briefly one time to say, hey, how do we want to share what we do? And from that little discussion came the truth, which is the work that happens each and every day. So I'm so grateful for each of you saying, yes, I'll do that. I'll take time and share at the Color of Child Welfare Conference. And aren't they terrific? Yeah. Yeah, you can't write a script that matches the truth of their work. So we are committed to taking the opportunity for questions or comments in such a way that maybe you're curious about. We've got a little bit of time together yet, and so this time is your time. I did want to introduce Jenny Keefe, who's up front here. Jenny is our Vice President of Child and Family Wellbeing, and she leads most of the work that you heard about, most of the work of our about 90 case managers who serve families in the community now. So thanks for being with us. Sonia Williams is immediately behind her. Sonia is our VP of Human Resources, always in the community looking for top talent. Maybe that's some of you, but Sonia's been a terrific addition to our executive team, a couple years now almost. So questions, comments, I think because we're being live streamed, if you choose to, I will bring the microphone to you so that it can be amplified in the live stream. And yeah, let's go ahead, have some discussion.
So I was happy to hear that you've included this acknowledgement, understanding, recognition of historical, kind of generational, racialized trauma in your work. And I'm wondering if you or someone on the team can speak to how is that translating into kind of what you're doing differently in the work that really speaks to like Black and brown families and really like we tend to kind of talk around things, right? And people of color and diversity. It's like how's that translating into action for you all?
Sure. I'll take it, and then I bet there may be some other thoughts from our team. But how it translates to us in daily practice is a fidelity to our model of trauma-informed care. That means that for each family that we serve, we do a very detailed staffing conversation about their story, what assets and needs they bring when we meet them, and how we can help serve those needs as we get to know them. We're still responsible for the fidelity to child welfare standards and practice, and we adhere to the decisions of the court. But how we approach families in our care by talking about things that aren't on the traditional checklist, I think makes a difference in how we can engage them. As Alice pointed out, people still don't necessarily trust us because we are seen as part of the system. So it's through that pretty authentic discussion about what the 5 pillars means, and as Alex talked about, what community resources we can offer. That's my best example of how it lives beyond just the comments. So I saw some commotion over here. Yes?
It out.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm about to do it. I got this. You were saying how so I'm a parent partner and this position is kind of new. It's a new evidence base. So I'm different. I'm from the system. When I go into families, I engage with them by telling them, this is what you have to do. These are your core conditions. it is really no other way for us to get around it. You have to do this, and let's do it. Like, I come clean, and I don't, like, fancy my words or any of those things. I come straight in with it, and that's how I engage with families. And I actually take them places and make sure that they get it done also.
I can touch on that if you want. Yeah. So I think, is it on still? Yeah. Oh, okay. I think for me, just in my journey of being a white person, I think that the model that WellPoint has, the trauma-informed care model, really the perspective shift that we're constantly asking or changing is kind of the what's wrong with you to what happened to you, and that happens through the whole process of me from the moment I walk through the door. So it's a paradigm shift, and I think they highlighted today about coming, to being these benevolent people to help. And instead we're coming alongside and really collaborating, because there's actually so much that the family is teaching me and telling me and communicating to me about what it's like, to live in their shoes, and then me being that facilitator. So I think that is a big shift, and it doesn't only take place for the individual, but also we're asking or looking at the whole system in that way of like what's wrong with the system is not helpful, instead of kind of what happened to the system, and how can we intervene.
Yeah. I mean, the nature of child welfare is that it's a court process, and court is by its nature very adversarial. So we talked about that polarization and right or wrong, left or right. That's a very real part of this too. That even in the most authentic way that our staff are describing their work, there might be somebody who doesn't like that because it doesn't accomplish their objectives within the court process. That's very humbling at times, and sometimes I believe the better we are at advocating, the more that comes to attention. So you're nodding, yeah. I want to make sure there's chance for a couple more questions. I think we're still good for time. You and then you. I think she had her hand first. So there you go.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Just a really quick question regarding my understanding of your structure as it relates to how you implement and advance issues of equity, inclusion, diversity, trauma-informed care is through your work groups and committee structures where it's staff-led and staff-engaged. And so my question is, have you had the experience of work group fatigue, committee fatigue, and how is that managed? And do you see the commitment from the organization as a whole to this work being valid or not valid? That's probably too strong of a word, but consistent enough to carry the agenda forward in ways that don't exhaust our teams.
Yeah. We thank you for that thoughtful question. We ask a lot of people, don't we, that we have high expectations for quality performance of work. We ask for engagement on crucial conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. We insist that people learn about trauma-informed care so that they can use that in their work. And by the way, then the pandemic hit. So we absolutely have experienced within our workforce fatigue over the last few years. And that has impacted some of the energy and forward movement in some of our work groups and committees, because they're populated with the same humans that we're asking to do pretty remarkable work every day. So how we do that is we try to refresh that group. We have created a leadership council that is a safe place to talk about these difficulties. Our historical trauma work group is probably the most, well, I love all the groups, so please don't leave thinking I said otherwise, but we get very real. What you're talking about at its truth is this is really at times impossible, and yet we persist. And so when you layer that expectation for excellence in DEI alongside the weight of historical and generational trauma, no matter what your racial story, that's pretty heavy. One of the ways I think we navigate it best is by talking about it openly. It doesn't mean we always get along. It isn't always a kumbaya support group for these tough topics, but it is, you asked, does the organization support it? You know, when I hear that, I'm really humble. I'm thinking, of course we do. I'm standing here as the leader saying we do, but I guess I have to be honest. I'm sure there are times when people are wondering if we do, or feeling that there are days we are authentic and awesome. Our Pride event is coming up in a couple of weeks, as an example, and there are days when they wonder if we are on track, or if they want to recite the pledge anymore, because maybe they're not sure that we always, including me, that we always walk the talk. So I think that humility is a real big piece of honoring what you're suggesting about the difficulty of this work. So I don't know if others wanted to comment at all. It's a really, really truthful question. Wait, can I give you this? Because the people on Facebook want to hear you.
I'll just add to that. I know Ann mentioned in her presentation about our redefining our strategy around DEI in 2022, which keeps us accountable for the work as well. And the organization is making continual and renewed investments in that work, not only by delegating those strategies and goals to our programs and teams, but also by expanding our workforce. We have a dedicated director of equity, culture, and belonging. So to help us make sure that we're on track and we're doing what we said we would do.
If it's okay, I have to get going. My name is Amada Morales. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a family advocate for 13 years. I'm unpaid in the community. Some of you may have heard my name around caseloads from time to time. I work at Casa Maria and the Welfare Warriors, and I'm fortunate enough to receive 2 properties where we transition families rent-free. I do court advocacy, and I bottom line try to find parents and families the money that the system won't give them, right? That we're talking about this morning, and I'm so pleased you're here today. I'm pleased that we're having this discussion and you're here. And it's very important. Sometimes within my 13 years, we get so mad at the workers. We get so mad at Ann. We get so mad at all the people in the industry. And it takes time for us to learn that you're not the one pulling the cases initially. You're not being assigned you're not the one choosing the cases. There's times where we see, hey, maybe you are in favor of reunification, but the GAL is just steadfast against any type of reunification. The time clock is going for 15 months and boom, the kids are adopted. The numbers are settled. It looks like about 1,000 are probably in adoptive homes each year from the numbers that I'm reading, more or less. My question is how, it's not your role, you're not being paid to do this. How do we get the lawyers and the judges to this conversation so that you're not saying, Amada, we want the kids to go home, it's just the GAL won't budge. And it's these, people who have, mind you, no experience with racism or acknowledgement that they may be inherently racist, for number one. But number two, they've never been poor, and they don't know what it is to be poor, raise a family with children with special needs, and you're a parent with special needs yourself. Where do you get these resources? And there's no compassion when it translates from, the parent to the GAL. They won't even talk to our parents or look them in the eye. And so I just want to know, it's not your job, but how do you keep that in mind that on our side, we're working with $0. Maybe we get bus tickets, maybe.
Yeah.
And just keep that in mind when you're setting the standards. Well, you're not setting the standards, but you're enforcing them.
Yeah.
And how do you balance that? So I do have to run, but just wanted to ask you all, the workers at WellPoint and anyone else, to please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Just hang on for 10 seconds. Let's partner together on that. So the answer is it's a complex system, and everybody wears a different role or a different hat in the different role they're in. Jill Collins is with us this afternoon, who leads the ongoing section at the Division of Child Welfare. Let's partner with bringing those judicial and legal system partners to the discussion, because, we're not responsible to that, and yet really we all are, right? This is a public system, so
it's making your jobs harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because and it's really confusing because you're not the ones writing the legislation. Well, Children's is writing the legislation. You're not necessarily, but it's tough, and it comes down to the caseworkers, and then who gets all the complaints are the caseworkers, right? So
yeah, and me. Go ahead, Janisha.
Okay, here we go. All right. I just wanted to say, as a parent partner, what I do is I talk to GAL's attorneys. I talk to lawyers. I talk to everybody so we can all be in direct communication with each other, because that is the best way for that parent to succeed. Through FDTC, that's what they did. So that's what I try to implement as a parent partner. So it just getting that. It's like a circle. Everybody in this circle, foster parents, everybody should be in this circle communicating.
do you get to talk to the lawyers outside of the treatment-based court?
Yes.
So regular CHIPS cases, you get to advocate for parents?
Yes.
Jonisha's our Trojan horse, right? The concept behind her role is definitely a part of this opportunity for us that, called us all to this conference today. So, thank you. Take care. We have time, I think, for one more comment or question. Okay. Hello.
Hello, I am Antoinette Davis. I've had the pleasure of working with everyone except Mr. Williams. It's great to see the growth and at WellPoint. My question is, I just want to hear from the panel. Why do you stay? Why
I
do
got
you
the mic,
stay?
I'll go first.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm gonna be very honest. It was hard staying, especially during COVID. But my family's kept me staying. Building those relationships, especially with my teenagers. I'm really good with the teens. But just wanting to see them not just age out and have nowhere to go, but hey, we need a plan. Seeing those babies. I wanted to see the parents. I have one of my FDTC families I've worked with in the past. Talked to her today, and she's very successful. So I stay because I actually love what I do, and just for my families. I want to see them grow. I want to see them succeed.
Go ahead, Alex.
So you're asking about our why. For me, it's always people. My first experience being conscious of helping people is being 8 years old and handing out turkeys during Thanksgiving. And I think I kind of latched on to that feeling of helping people and seeing the look on people's faces when you help them with groceries to the car or anything like that. So I'm always seeking the greatest opportunity to help my community. I was in education before, and just the day-to-day of going to school and seeing the kids' faces and figuring out what they needed, and understanding that behaviors are linked to things that are going on at home, right? And it's not an inherent behavior of the kid or personality, but that kid needs a snack, that kid needs a hug, that kid needs somebody to talk to for 5 minutes before school. And I think I've translated that to the greater community, right? So after I left education, I was doing youth organizing and community organizing, and it just kind of snowballed into this propensity to help wherever I can. And so when I saw the opportunity for a director of community engagement and just reading all the services that WellPoint provides for people, the different resources, the mental health, it kind of felt like a natural fit. And then since I've been here, I found my purpose in that there's always something to be doing. I feel like I can go home, right? I can turn my computer off, but the community is not going to stop. The work is not going to stop. And just seeing that need and being humble and understanding that if you work in a nonprofit organization, your goal should be to work yourself out of a job. And it's hard for people to sometimes grasp that because, like, I need a job. But again, if you're in a nonprofit organization, your goal is to help people or to provide services for people until they no longer need that help, right? That's working yourself out of a job. And I think we have to approach all of our work like that, right? So I stay because the work's not done yet, right? People aren't liberated. People aren't, they don't have everything they need. And so until that happens, until that utopia is complete, I'm going to continue to do community work.
I stay because I am a part of a systemic racism change, a systematic barrier change, and that's what motivates me. I am here because it's a change that's about to happen, and I know it's happening soon. So I'm here to be a part of that change.
I will tell you that I have left WellPoint and come back, so I must really like it. But I think that Anne's presentation, when she told us kind of some of the stuff that she was going to present before, really helped me just see that I think it's hard, very hard when you're in the work because it is challenging and exhausting, especially as a case manager. But to see that, wow, actually there has been incremental change and it's been significant. And also that WellPoint really does care about equity within and without. Or within the organization and externally. So I have seen other organizations, and every organization has its challenges. But yeah, this is somewhere where I feel like I can really speak my mind, and I'm listened to. So.
Thank you all for I'm sweating. We gotta take this on the road to a warm